So we are back again. So last time we had these three meshes uh, retopologized out of this high poly mesh, and as you can see, these were the twice count of these meshes. So in this part, we will be doing the UVs of the low poly meshes. So first, starting with the renaming. So I have already renamed we had already done the manual, and the duplicate is manual.001. It's automatic. And the second is automatic roto. The third one is, okay, let's rename the third one to be um, decimated retopo underscore version 1 and retopo underscore version 1. Okay, underscore. Okay, these are the eyes. Size underscore 07. Okay, so now starting with the UV, you can always switch in the UV editing tab and the other tabs given, but I like to use my custom layout, which is this thing. So I always have my shader editor. I always have my shader editor over here so that I can quickly tweak my shaders in the node graph, and I always have my UV editor over here. So hide this thing. Okay. So starting with the UV of the face itself. Now first I'm gonna add a new material, and I'm gonna add the name as test. Okay, I already have a test material. Okay, so let's use the test material. New create 4096. Um, so I have already used the test name, so I'm gonna use checker, and before clicking enter, I'm gonna use the color grade. So rather than using this black color, I'm gonna use the color grade. If you accidentally clicked OK and you wanted to have a color grade instead of the black solid, what you can do is simply press N, go in the image section, and you can find the setting over here. And I'm gonna use a color grade. So I always do the UVs starting with selecting everything, starting with the Smart UV project. So it's not recommended to use Smart UV project unless you know what you are doing and what you want, because using the Smart UV project, it will create the automatic UVs, and it will just add random seams to the mesh. So as you can see here, so it has randomly cut the mesh in different parts depending on the angle which we have. So by default the angle is 66, so we can do 90. The maximum is 89, but still you might not get a good result. But still I like to do this so that I can find basic seam structure. Like I can see it has cut over here in this portion, and it has a loop over here selected right now. So it's always good to know the loop kind of loop you might have to cut. like I can see a loop over here. So again, just checking what the smart UV project has to offer to us. So as you can see, it has given us this loop. I might not go with this loop, but rather this loop. So just so that I do not see the seam if I am in this view in any game engine or even in Blender. So just to avoid that, I'm gonna add the seam over here. So to add seam, select the loops. I'm pressing Alt and you clicking on the loop to select the full ring. So it will stop wherever it has more than one, two, three, four, more than four edges going out of a single vertex. So it is stopping over here, stopping over here. Control E and subdivide. Oh, oops, sorry, not subdivide. Control E and mark seam. Similarly over here, select Control E, mark seam, and so the automatic UV has given us this point to add seam. So I'm gonna add a seam over here. Now, if you see, most of the heads of characters are have a cut from this behind center line. So I'm gonna do the same. It's always good to open your mesh like a pure flat plane. Okay. And it's always good to have as minimum seam as you can so that you don't have multiple seam issues going on your mesh, because if you have multiple seams, like if I do smart UV project, you can see there are lots of island. These are called, yeah, islands, the UV islands. So you can see there are a lot of UV islands, and these are small, even small UV islands. So these are not good because then you might run in the issue of having multiple seams uh, when viewing your texture. So it's always good to have as minimum seams as you can. And what you can do even to improve the speed of your work is when you have a seam ready, what you can do is Control Shift M. So it will uh, select the mirror of what you had selected previously. So I had selected these four loops over here. So I just pressed Control Shift and M, and it has selected this thing over here. So you can find the option over here, mirror selection. So Control E, mark seam, and I'm gonna add another seam. Okay, I have to do this manually. Okay, let's mirror the selection again. Again, I am trying not to make the seams in the front, but when there are no options, you might have to do that. Control E, mark seam. I don't want multiple seams in the front of my mesh, so I'm trying to avoid as much as I can. But if, when it is, I'm sorry, when it is necessary, you have to do that. Now, so as you can see, I have this thing over here. Now, let's apply the mirror. Since there is a center line going inside the eyeball, you can add seam from there. So when you are having multiple meshes, let me turn on this mesh. When you are having multiple meshes like this in your scene, and you just want to focus on a single mesh, and you don't want to hide other meshes, so what you can do is simply press slash on your keyboard. So there is this forward slash near the shift button under the enter, and you can press that to just solo your selection, or you can see the local, what is it is called in Blender. So you can then just focus on the single thing. So simply select the eyeball. I'm doing the local view of this thing. And since as this is what I was saying, that I have a loop going in the center of the mesh, so I'm gonna use it as a scene. Unwrap, and there you have it. Now again pressing the slash to come out of the local view. So now since you can see this is having a checkerboard, this is having a checkerboard, but this thing is not having a checkerboard. So you can select the mesh, another mesh with which is having the material. Press Ctrl and L, and you can find the make links. Here you have different options. Even if you have a, like if you have a subdivide in the modifiers, what you can do is simply select the mesh and select another mesh which with the modifier and select modifier. So now the this mesh also has the modifier, same modifier as this one. So a quick tip. Now Control L, material, you have it there. Now I'm gonna select these both meshes, select everything, press U again so that everything is averaged down. So everything is averaged now, and these are my eyes. I'm gonna keep them aside for now, and let's just quickly check if there are any issues. So like I can see there's this issue of stretching over here. One, two, three, four, these edges again, and this also on both the sides. So I guess you have to add a loop, so a seam, not in the center when you have this kind of issue, but rather in the sides. And mark seam, and now select everything, press U again, and the issues has been solved. Now simply connect the seams, complete the seams, and you have it. The issues are gone now. A little bit of different scaling. The scaling is different over here a bit. The scaling is different over here, but this can be solved a bit with the minimized stretch. When you go in the face selection mode, you can select the UV island in the 3D mode. So I have my UV island selected, UV, minimize stretch, and so now I'm gonna lay out my UVs. Now I always like to lay out my UVs in the direction of gravity or the top bottom um, what you can say criteria. So I always try to do that, and so what I mean is, let's check once more. Everything is okay. Okay. So what I mean by that is select, rotate, and this is by the gravity. So top, bottom, or gravity, whatever. So this is the top, this is the bottom, top, bottom, or the gravity. So select. I try to keep the head on the top right corner because that is the spot for where I look first in the while doing the textures or while doing the UV. So I just always keep over there. It's not a rule or something like that, but it's always good to have a workflow. So in my workflow, I always keep the head in the top right corner. You can open these things even further, but I'm gonna go with this thing for right now because this is the last thing you might get concerned in a game object. So I'm not focusing on that, but rather focusing on other objects. So you can select everything since you can see that there are quite a plenty of space around here. So you can press dot or the full stop in the keyboard, and you can select individual origins and this and now scale by individual origin. You can try. Oops. You can now you can also enable this thing. It is quite cool actually. Mm, okay, constraint to the image bound. So this is quite cool because if your UVs are outside the this 4K map or the 1K map, whatever map you have, and you want them to be perfectly inside this area, you can enable constraint to image bounds, and now it will just snap. It will don't go out. It will not go outside the image bound or the image resolution, whatever you have set. So it is quite handy as you can see. So what I do is I never snap perfectly on the pixel on the vertices on the pixel. I always try to give them a bit of space. So like also here, minimum space we also do, but I always try to have spaces at the borders. Since there is no space and um, actually there is space, but I am trying to keep things in the top bottom manner. I can do like this and try to not touch anything, but I don't want to mess things up, so I'm gonna put it over here. So while I'm doing this thing, I'm using G to move it and pressing the middle mouse or the I have assigned the middle mouse to my fingertip button now, and then with the middle click, you can snap in the axis. So in the y-axis, I snap my UVs, and then by pressing G, you can move, and then use Shift while moving. So you can use precision shifting, I guess. Okay, so you can select the UV islands only in the face mode, face selection mode. Otherwise, it will just move all the. If I just try to select this thing and move this thing, you can see it moves the other vertices also. So I use the face mode and select by clicking L. Whenever you have things which are overlapped like this, and you want to select, like you have selected this face, and you want to select the this UV island with the selected face, you can press Control L and it will select the linked face, linked UV shell or UV island. You can also go further and detach the ears since we have a loop going around. You can also detach this thing and keep this thing separate, but I'm gonna go with this thing now. I'm not going to separate this thing. And these are my eyes, my model size. Okay, I always try to keep things, as I said, in the gravity direction or the top bottom direction. So I'm gonna do the same thing over here, trying to find the center point. And also one thing which I always do is I try to keep uh, the nearest UV to the selected mesh uh, near to the other UVs. Like if I have if I have two islands over here, the front part and the back part, I will keep them both nearby, not like this thing, because you can see the front part is over here. Sorry, the part is over here and the back part is over here. So I try to keep things nearby. And since I am righty, so I tend to keep things from right to left, like in this direction. The front is in this direction and the back is in the this direction. But it is not any compulsion. You can do whatever you like. But these are the things which might help you in a longer run, since you have your own workflow. So having your own workflow, having your own um, way of working uh, helps you in a longer run. Because whenever you work on a, like I know that I have worked on the UVs of this mesh. So whenever I'm doing the texturing in the Substance Painter or whatever software, even in Photoshop, I know where things are kept. Like I know the head will be always in the top right corner, and always the front part will be in the left part, and other thing in the back part in the right side. So this is my workflow. This is how I tend to keep things. So I can see so you can see over here, there's a pinching going on over here. I can select this word faces and select. Okay, it did not help that much. Okay, so now I have a little bit of more equalized space over here. Okay, so I have a UV of my manually retopod mesh. Since I have space in the center, I will just move things a little bit towards the center and not towards the borders of my texture. If you have space, then spread your legs. Now, since in the first part, I just imported this model from my other file. So I have my UVs ready over here. So let me just show you the UVs I did for this thing. So I'm gonna select each and every. So you can see first of all that there are no UV seams. So if you don't have UV seams but you have your UVs intact, so what you can do is select everything, go to UV and select seams from island, and you will have your UVs. So this is the face, this is the ear, this is the front part, I guess. Yes, this is the front part of the mesh, the chest part. This is the back part, the shoulder part, the neck part, and the base of this thing. And these are the antennas. Since it is the very weird auto automatically retopologized mesh, it is not quite perfect around the edges, as you can see over here. But since it is automatic and since we did not spend quite a lot of effort bringing this thing to a workable mesh, it is quite good to have this type of quality. So this is a decimated mesh, and this is the quick result of what you will achieve. So I would rather go do things manually. So I'm gonna keep this thing in the brighter section so that it's easy to see or better. Since when we were doing the decimation, we selected triangulated and symmetrical. So we have a symmetry going, and we also did the mirroring. So we have a center line in this mesh. So it's easy for us to do the UVs now. And let's see if what if we can just use this center line as the seam. Control E, oops, Control E, Maxi. I'm just trying to follow wherever the edge is going, and we can then simply Control Shift M and mirror the selection. Control E, mark seam. Simple as that. And now we have. Now let's see first what we have achieved till now. So select everything, press U, unwrap, and this is what you have right now. And I would say it is not that bad, but we can improve the things. So definitely we have to detach this antenna so that we can get the face shape quite good. And this is what I was earlier mentioning in my first part, that whenever you go through the UV part, UV section, then you might find things like these. You might find these things like this, and it's okay to have this thing because you can always snap it somewhere and then just select everything, Control Q. Let me just quickly reduce the distance, and now we are back on track. I don't need this thing because this is making a dip or the valley. This is the valley effect which I was mentioning earlier. So I don't need this thing. So Control E, oops, not Control E, X, dissolve the edge. And now this is a mountain. So this is valley, this is mountain, valley, mountain. So these are the two terms which I have kept. I don't know what are the technical terms for this thing, but I like to call it mountain and valley effect. I'm gonna add a temporary loop and just simply move around this direction and then delete the edge over here. This was a temporary edge just to move around. I don't need this thing. I need this loop. I don't need this loop. So after doing all this thing, now what we can do is simply mm, so I guess that's it for this thing. And I'm gonna now simply use a mirror. I'm gonna delete this part, this whole part, and do a quick mirror, add mirror. So now whatever I did over here, we have the changes right over here. Going to the material view, again selecting everything. Since we mirrored the half part, so we have the UVs overlapped. So select everything, U, unwrap. It is good when you are making something symmetrical, like symmetric, when you are going for symmetric workflow, like you can find in Dota and Dota 2 characters. You can do this, like select everything, the half part, and then simply after doing the UVs, delete this thing, and after applying the mirror, you would have overlapped UV. So that is what you can do if you are going for something like that. Control E, mark scene, Control Shift M, 7 mist mirror. Okay, sorry, 7 vertex. Control E, mark scene. Again, loop going upward. Let's see if this will work. Control Shift M, Control E, UV. Okay. So as you can see already this thing is very bad in shape, but still you have the UVs. We have the UVs done of this whole part. And as you can see, the I have not created the eye part separately, like we have the eye part over here. Not even in this one, not even in this one. Since our main focus is this mesh, but we are making these two meshes for just to see at what extent we can push the baking in terms of the shape which we have, in terms of the polygon which we have on these two meshes. So let's select everything, press U. Now let's lay out this thing. Okay, so here I don't need this two different part at the base, so I would just select everything, clear scene, U, press unwrap. Okay, so while I'm rotating, I'm pressing Control so that I can snap in the um, 45 degree or 15 degree angles. Left side, right side, and okay. So now we have all three of our meshes with UVs. Now let's see where we have left anything. So like here the antenna on my left is kept over here at the right side. So let's simply move this thing in the opposite directions. Again, this is my workflow because I find it very convenient to have things in the either the top bottom direction or the left to right direction, so that while working I know while doing the textures or while doing the baking I know the this part is going to be my left part, this is my right part, this is always the top thing, this is always the bottom. So again, just having a workflow like this, it's always better to check things better whether they are in proper shape or not, or in proper alignment or not. So let's quickly check my eyes. So this is my front. Yes, this is my front, and this is my back of the eye. Yes. So similarly over here, let's check if this is following the same. This is the top head. Yes. The bottom. Yes. Neck, the chest, shoulder, back of the shoulder, bottom of the shoulder, base, and this is my left, this is my right antenna. This is the back portion of the neck. Over here, this is my face. This is the base of the creature. And this is the neck, the chest, left antenna, right antenna. Cool. So now these are the three UVs of these three low poly meshes. Now I'm not complaining or anything, but I find it um, quite easy to do the head part UV in Maya, because sometimes, as you can see, the initially we had a very weird issue of stretching over here. We did solve the issue by simply selecting these faces and going to the minimize stretch, but you can still see there's a stretching in this area. So somehow the automatic, like if you press this this U, so it is calculating the automatically where the UVs might land on the, or simply, how can I say that, or simply if you can take it like that, how the mesh would open in a flat manner if the UV would be over here or over here. So Blender is trying to flatten down the object based on the selection, based on the UV seam you have given to him or it. But Maya tends to work better in this scenario of not stretching the things like what is happening over here. So you can check that out if you want. But you can always solve this thing by using the grab, pinch, and this tool. So you can always do things like that. But if you want to go fast, then in the first pass or in the first uh, unwrap, you might find the stretching issue like we still have over here. But since it is the chin area, the bottom part, we are not concerned over here that much. So let's discuss some things. So always try to work in the top, bottom, or left to right manner. So this might help you while texturing and also while checking checking your mesh for optimization. Also, if you have something like if you have the mesh full, if you have total UV space of your image, total UV space of your image resolution filled with UV island, and you don't have any option to keep this top bottom thing going on, then what you can do is like if I select this part, so let's say this whole part is full and the only space which I have is something like that. So what in that scenario? So what I try to do is again try to again there is no hard and fast rule, but I try to keep the bottom in the left part, the top at the right part, as you can see over here. So this is what I try, and this is what I follow. So it's always better to have your own workflow, just so that you find it easy to optimize things. So this is our second part, and in the third part we'll see how you can bake down your high poly mesh details on your low poly meshes.